Good evening. It is Thursday, April the 19th, about 9 o'clock p.m. This is Shay Gibson with iKitesurf Wind Alert and SailFlow, bringing you a wind and weather forecast for the upcoming Fort2Battery Race this weekend. This is all powered by Force Kite and Wake, held at the James Island Yacht Club, hosted by Coach Ham. So hats off to all of these folks for getting this race together and getting all the logistics in place for it to happen. The big question is when. So let me go ahead and minimize myself here in the smaller window and give you the website here. Here's the registration. If you have not registered, it is not too late. The registration goes on through tomorrow, so make sure that you sign up for this. I'm not sure if the date here, the 21st means, actually here it is. Here's the new verbiage. Registration ends April 20th at 12 o'clock p.m. So you have until tomorrow at 12 noon to register for the race. So please join us. It's going to be a great race, and what we want to talk about is the wind, because that's going to be the big factor. The big race is going to be able to happen on Saturday. There's going to be some other foil races going on, and that requires lighter wind. It actually allows for lighter wind, so they have a little bit of an advantage there. But for the rest of us that are going to be doing the drag race, that's going to be the big question. So here's the surface map. Let's take a look at the bigger picture, what's going on. And what we see here is this cold front that has traversed the area. As of now, winds are northwest behind it. The big player is this giant dome of high pressure that's going to be sliding east over the Great Lakes. And this is going to be bringing our northerly flow down overnight tonight. We have this low here to the north, high pressure here to the west of that low, and then what we have is counterclockwise rotation, and then we have clockwise, and this is all going to filter down into this area. Tonight we're going to see a pretty big pulse of north-northeast or even northerly winds really biting down behind this cold front, and that's going to continue overnight and into the morning hours and sort of taper off in the afternoon. But there's some other mechanics to talk about that. We look at the GFS model, and I did this YouTube video 2 nights ago, talked about the GFS being a little bit sluggish on the winds. In fact, the winds were only it was only bringing about 10 or 11 knots. And now we're starting to see the model sort of come up a little bit from that based on the high pressure to the north. So if we run the model forward, we get into tomorrow and we see this northeast wedge set up. We can see the isobars lining up in this direction. We'll see more of a north-northeast flow here, becoming more northeast down the coastline, and then east-northeast eventually over time. So here we go. We get into Saturday morning. And so what the big factor here is how large this dome is going to be. Is it going to carry that northeast wedge, which bends east-northeast along our coastline, into our area? We are expecting sunshine for Saturday, so that'll allow for this east-northeast backdoor sea breezes we're so famous for. The big question is going to be, what are the winds going to come to? And we look at iKitesurf ongoing right now. Here's that wedge coming down already. We can see these winds really picking up, especially in the Tidewater area in the mid-Atlantic. We see up to 37 knots. That's over 40 miles an hour in gusts. And then we see that northeast wedge starting to work its way down the coast to us now. So if you zoom in to the Charleston area, things are pretty quiet tonight, fairly quiet. We went from a moderate, really nice sea breeze yesterday and today, south-southwest to southwest, really good winds. And now we're having a transition over to that northerly flow. But right now we're just seeing that kind of northerly, somewhat moderate over the open areas. And we should see those winds start to turn. By the time you wake up tomorrow morning, we'll have that northeast to north-northeast flow. Let's go ahead and take a look at the models. And let me go to complete report. And I want to get all models selected here. And this is one thing that I always encourage folks to do. When you're looking at the wind forecast and you're seeing our Quick Look Plus or just Quick Look in general, it's a blended model. So you really want to look at all the model guidance there, and there's a whole slew of them, a whole suite. And as we get into tomorrow morning, we see that there's a lot of agreement for an increased flow in the morning time. The Wolf Wharf 2 kilometer is one that we watch a lot, but that one seems to be exaggerated on these cold air events or cooler air events as we do cool down over the next couple days. So I'm really watching for right here. We're looking at upper teens to maybe even low 20s by the time we wake up in the morning to those open spots over the harbor. The beaches will still be offshore. And then we see these winds sort of taper down into tomorrow afternoon. I still think we're going to see a midday to early afternoon bump off that east-northeast flow, and the models drag it down, but we all know that we see those backdoor sea breezes, and so I think we'll have a bump to mid to upper teens tomorrow afternoon before it bleeds out when the air temperatures cool tomorrow afternoon. As we get into Saturday, this is the big key here. Now remember, I said that the GFS was holding right around 10 or 11 knots through these afternoon hours a couple nights ago, and now we're starting to see those kind of come up a little bit. The higher resolution models are coming into the picture. We're even seeing the Wolf Wharf, the National Weather Service models are starting to come up. We're seeing upper teens. We don't know if that's going to hold, but just based on the criteria that I see, The GFS, if everything holds and we don't get any weird short waving off the coastline or anything like that, and everything kind of really just peels down the coast and the gradient tightens, we should be able to see mid to upper teens on Saturday. So that's going to be my call for right now for Saturday afternoon for the races. We should easily see 15 to 19 knots. If we're lucky, we'll get even more than that based on the east-northeast sea breeze gradient that's developed. If we look at the area, this is a blog I did a little bit a couple years ago. This sort of shows the model for what the winds do on east-northeast winds along our coastline. They sort of do a Venturi effect into the harbor. They turn a little bit more east. You'll see the sensor go a little bit more east inside the harbor, and then as we get in further in towards the James Island Yacht Club, we get another little bit of a sea breeze effect from land, from warming land and these cooler winds funneling in. The left side of the course, here's Fort Sumter right here. As we head towards the battery, you might find that the left side of the course may hold a little bit more wind because there's actually a little bit of a wind streak that runs through here on these east-northeast winds. The further out here, it becomes a little bit more turbulent, especially when the current is involved and you get a little bit more chop on the water. Then you get sort of a surface friction effect. I noticed that a few years ago. I think it was 3 years ago when we did the event on a really strong east-northeast wind. I noticed that this whole side of the course was weaker, and when we got over here, it was a lot stronger. So that's something to think about. If we talk about the tides and the currents and everything, I think there's going to be a lot of vessels out there that have less drag. Some of the sailboats may have some drag. The moths, the foilers definitely have less drag, and the rest of us on kites, on twin tips and maybe even doors, depending on the winds, will have not as much. But I think this is the zone to stay in as far as the winds go. And we'll go over this tomorrow night at the skipper's meeting. Quick note on the temperatures. We are going to cool down over the weekend, so if that helps you with your gear and your wetsuits and everything, it depends on how you like it. If you like cooler air, the water temperatures are still about 65 degrees. In fact, if we look at our sea surface temperatures, our cooler shelf waters are sticking right around 64, 65 degrees. And let me check the latest just to make sure. And it's right about here, 65.8. So it actually has come up about another degree today. And we may even get another degree by tomorrow morning. But that northeast wedge is definitely going to drive the temperatures down. So we're looking at about 63 degrees on Saturday. That's basically what I'm going to call for the sea surface temperatures. Cloud cover. We talked about cloud cover a little bit ago. Clouds aren't going to start to build until Sunday when a low pressure system starts to ease in from the west, wobble in. It's going to make things really interesting on Monday with winds and messy weather. But here's Saturday morning, and this is at about 7 o'clock a.m. As we go forward into time, we get into Saturday afternoon. That's when the clouds start coming in. See, these clouds are going to be a little bit helpful, especially these offshore clouds. That's going to help increase that east-northeast gradient. So I'm really banking on that sort of offshore troughing to sort of help out with that acceleration of winds along the coastline. And as we get later into the day and into the night, we see the cloud cover really coming over by Sunday. So I think overall the race is better off as far as the wind forecast for Saturday, not tomorrow, for Saturday rather than Sunday. Sunday looked like it could have been a stronger day, but I think that there's a few other elements going on. Looks like on the GFS, the high wobbles a little more east, and the winds become a little bit more easterly in nature, which when you start to go east in winds, full east along the coast, they tend to weaken. Even east-southeast, they get even weaker than that. But we won't go that far out. I think we're going to stick to Saturday for right now. I'll see you guys at the skipper's meeting tomorrow night. We'll talk a little bit more about it then. I'll answer any questions you have. And like I said, if you haven't registered, do it now. And we will see you tomorrow night. Welcome to Charleston, everybody. Take care.